We talked last week with author, commentator and political historian Paul Kelly about his new book, The Twilight of Exceptionalism. Assessing the past decade or so, Kelly rightly says Australia's blown the good work of the Hawke-Keating Labor government and the Howard Costello coalition government that made this country a standout in economic and budgetary performance, not to mention the social and diplomatic dividends of all of this and what it delivered for us. This thesis is dead right, of course. We've gone from surplus budgets to endless deficits with no discernible gain. We've gone from a government with net savings to $1 trillion of government debt, again with nothing to show for it. Our productivity growth has plummeted as real wages have often fallen, chasing runaway inflation. Government spending is out of control. We've destroyed industries and vandalised our cheap energy advantage in a delusional folly to please the United Nations and pretend that a country with about 1% of global emissions can change the world's climate. And Labor administrations now see government programs and spending as the answer to everything. They are not. They are often the problem. Our only road back to prosperity is to be more efficient and productive. But there was a warning today from former Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe. He said that interest rates are likely to remain higher for longer given years of sustained wages growth coming without a productivity dividend. Without a productivity dividend. That's the key point. We all want higher wages, but if they don't come off the back of higher productivity, they only fuel inflation, making costs higher and most of us poorer. We need to get back to improving productivity so we can then have sustainable wage rises and increase our standard of living. Yet under Labor governments, led by their union masters, we're seeing working from home become the new norm, especially in the public sector, where AI should be allowing them to do more with less. But instead we have added 45,000 public servants since Labor came to power. That's 30% more federal public servants in just 4 years. And have you noticed government services getting any better? Well, no, of course not. And one reason is this. Even in Services Australia, the part of the public service most focused on dealing with taxpayers, with serving the public, nearly half the staff work from home. As revealed in the Senate and reported in The Australian, almost 50% of the 33,500 staff in Services Australia have an approved working from home arrangement. This means that 10,300 employees in the pay bracket from $70,000 to $113,000 work from home 3 or more days a week. Incredibly, around 3.6% of the staff never go into the office at all. And over 1,500 executive-level workers who are paid between $122,000 and $168,000 work from home 3 days or more a week. And how about this one? 3 members of the senior executive service, those paid more than $170,000 a year, well, they work from home 3 or more days a week, 3 of them. So there you have it. More public servants than ever before during a cost of living crisis, and the public servants are eating up tax dollars with wages and conditions much more generous than the private sector that funds them through its taxes. And even those who are supposed to deal with customers are doing it mainly from the comfort and privacy of their own homes. The government is having a lend of us. It just doesn't have the spine to deliver efficient government because it's controlled by the unions. Next time you hear Albanese or Chalmers talk about the cost of living challenge or budget pressures or economic headwaters, just remember they're the ones making all of it worse.
Albanese piss off as Chris Kenny trashes Labor government on live TV. Good day, and let me tell you exactly what is wrong with that sentence you just heard. Chris Kenny calling this government controlled by the unions is not a gotcha. It is a description Labor itself would struggle to deny, and that should terrify anyone paying a power bill or waiting on a Medicare rebate right now. Before we get into it, if you want political commentary that refuses to pick a team and refuses to soften a blow just because it is aimed at the government of the day, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Aussie Insider does not carry water for Labour, the coalition, or anyone else warming a leather seat in Canberra. We judge results, not press releases. Now, let us get into the substance, because there is real substance here beneath the shouting match. Here is the judgment first. Kenny is right that efficiency and productivity are the only road back to genuine prosperity, and he is right that Australia's public service has ballooned under this government. Multiple budget analyses confirm the federal public service has grown by more than 45,000 positions since Labor took office in 2022, pushing the average full-time equivalent headcount past 215,000. That is not a rumor, that is not a Sky News beat-up, that is a figure sitting in the government's own budget papers. But here is where the story gets more complicated than either side wants to admit. A meaningful chunk of that growth, more than 13,000 roles by the government's own accounting, comes from converting expensive outsourced contractors and labor hire back into standard public service jobs. Labor's argument is that this actually saves money, and there is a case for that. So before you accept Kenny's framing wholesale, understand this is not simply 45,000 brand new bureaucrats appearing out of thin air. Some of it is genuine expansion. Some of it is relabeling. This is the part nobody wants to talk about, though, relabeling or not, ask yourself the question Kenny actually posed. Have you noticed government services getting any better? Because that is the only test that matters to you, sitting on hold with Centrelink or waiting months for a passport renewal. A bigger department is not a better department. If the public service has grown by 30% in 4 years and Australians still cannot get a straight answer out of the NDIS or a timely veterans claim processed, then size was never the problem worth boasting about, and neither side gets to claim victory on that front. Now here is where the union question actually bites. Working from home becoming the default posture across the APS is not some minor cultural quirk, it is a structural choice with a cost, and that cost lands on you. Every day a service delivery agency runs under capacity or with slower turnaround because workplace arrangements have shifted decisively toward remote defaults is a day where ordinary Australians wait longer for outcomes that used to be routine. That is not ideology. That is arithmetic. And this is where the pattern widens beyond one Sky News panel spot. Whether it is energy policy bent toward union-aligned industrial strategy, or workplace relations settings shaped more by who sits in the party room than by what actually lifts productivity, the through line is a government that has repeatedly chosen political peace with its base over the harder, less comfortable reforms that would genuinely move the needle on cost of living. Productivity growth in this country has been sluggish for the better part of a decade, and no amount of public service expansion fixes that on its own. So do not mistake this segment for a defense of labor, and do not mistake it for an endorsement of Kenny's framing either. Both things can be true at once. The public service has grown substantially and that growth deserves scrutiny, and simultaneously, turning every structural critique into a lazy, union puppet master's narrative lets the government off the hook for the actual, boring, unglamorous failure to deliver measurable service improvements to match the extra headcount and the extra spending. That is the accountability test this channel will keep applying regardless of who is in government, because outcomes are the only currency that matters here, not talking points from either side of the aisle. We will be watching the next round of budget estimates closely to see whether any of these numbers translate into services that actually work better for you. Thank you for watching.